Hey, what's up, Eagles fans? Welcome to another edition of Eagles Latest on FanArch. I'm your host, Cory Nidoh. Well, we have some topics to discuss today, but not a whole lot of news coming out of South Philly at the NovaCare complex. We don't want to beat the dead horse, which is this struggling offense. Obviously, it's a big talking point. It's a big storyline, but I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of tired of talking and writing about it, but there's really no new news or updates to provide, really, that hasn't been already said Friday postgame or what Nick Sirianni gave to the media yesterday during his press conference. The biggest nugget from the head coach's presser was the fact that after the week-long evaluation, Kevin Patullo will remain the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. And Nick Sirianni said on Friday there was not going to be any changes, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to all those fans and people that were hoping that there could be a change. Right now, they're going to give Kevin Patullo maybe this one final week when they go out to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers to see if they can unlock this offense, because they are obviously running out of time. In terms of the regular season, there's only 5 weeks left in the regular season before the playoffs start. The Eagles are right in the thick of things, the number 3 seed in the NFC. They obviously have a lead in the NFC East division, albeit just 1.5 games now as Dallas is surging. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens after this week if the Eagles offense once again struggles. And let's be honest, this offense is struggling. They are averaging just 15.5 points per game over their 4 games since the bye week. They're just 2-2 during that stretch. And the only teams that are averaging less points than the Philadelphia Eagles during those 4 weeks are the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New Orleans Saints, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Tennessee Titans, and they are a combined 18-54 on the season. So those are the bottom feeders in the NFL, and unfortunately the Eagles offense since the bye week is just a tick better than those teams. So it kind of puts it in perspective of how poorly this offense has been playing. Overall, they are below league average in nearly every important offensive statistic aside from giveaways. They're in the top 5-10 in that department. Obviously, they aren't turning the ball over, but they're 24th in total yards, 19th in scoring, 23rd in passing yards, 22nd in rushing, and 28th in offensive success rate, which is the worst for any Eagles team through Week 13 in the last 2 decades. That's courtesy of Sheil Kapadia. But this is an offense that needs to find answers, and they're not going to change things up. They're not going to call an audible here. They're not going to break glass in case of an emergency. Nick Sirianni told the media that Kevin Patullo will remain the offensive coordinator, and his reasoning is because of what he said on Friday, and he's not technically wrong. It's that it's not just Kevin Patullo. It's the offensive line, it's the quarterback, it's the running back, it's the coaching staff, it's everybody. But that answer is getting old. It's getting stale. Fans don't want to hear it. I'm sure the front office is starting to get a little antsy as well, that they don't want to hear it because they're paying these guys to figure it out. But this runway to use to get this offense to finally take off is getting shorter and shorter as each week goes by. So Nick Sirianni essentially said that they evaluated everything, and Kevin Patullo is going to remain offensive coordinator. He was asked if, why isn't this a similar situation back in 2023? And basically Nick Sirianni gave a long-winded answer, essentially saying that he believes that the two were different scenarios. But just, again, he mentioned it's not one person, and his cliche phrase of this is the ultimate team game, and he kind of just danced around it, and he's sticking up for his offensive coordinator, who's a good friend of his. Nick is very loyal to his staff, to his players, to everybody in that locker room, and he's not breaking away from it right now. So we'll see if that changes. Obviously, couple of years ago when Brian Johnson was the OC, he was kind of the scapegoat, although it was obviously Nick Sirianni's offense that he was calling. And then Sean Desai kind of took the bullet as well, although the defense was pretty bad under Desai and didn't get any better under Matt Patricia. So it's a bit of a slippery slope that the Eagles are dealing with. But again, Jeffrey Lurie isn't going to want to deal with embarrassment, and I'm sure he did not like the fact that boos were raining down loudly in that Chicago Bears game on Black Friday, and a lot of fans left with 5 to 6 minutes left in the game. I mean, I've been to a lot of Eagles games, and I can't remember the last time I've seen the Lincoln Financial Field empty out that early in a fourth quarter, even when they were down by a score or two. So it's definitely going to be something to monitor. We'll see if they give Kevin Patullo one more crack at it this week on Monday night with the extended time to really try and hone in something that can work and get these guys on the same page. Speaking of Kevin Patullo, some really disgusting news came out yesterday that his house was vandalized around 3 in the morning after the game on Friday. There was a video that circulated around on TikTok showing what looked to be teenagers throwing items or rocks or eggs at the home of the offensive coordinator. Reports have come out, and it was in fact eggs that they were throwing at. A little bit better than rocks, but it's still absolutely uncalled for, childish, disgusting, really. You can be frustrated with coaches, you can be frustrated with players, but when you're going to their homes, their private lives, and you're trying to commit damage and do damage, that's where the line is crossed. And to me, I think that's just utterly disgusting. And I hope that they are able to find those teenagers who did it and they learn a tough lesson, because you just can't do that. It doesn't matter if you don't like the guy or if you're unhappy with what's going on. You're going to somebody's home late at night, you're throwing objects, things can go wrong really quickly. So really just unfortunate and sad news to hear. And obviously it's going to put a dim light and a dark light on this Eagles fan base as a whole, because you know the national media is going to run with this story, and everybody in the country who are not Eagles fans are going to say, oh, well, look, they threw batteries at Santa Claus, which was 60, 70 years ago at this point, but it still gets brought up every year. Now it's going to be, oh, well, they egged the offensive coordinator's home at 3 in the morning because they weren't happy with the way they've been playing. So just a really bad and tough look. Obviously, it doesn't embody the majority of the Eagles fan base, but a couple of bad apples certainly making some negative news on behalf of the fan base. So hopefully that will get cleaned up and we don't see that again. We go back to the game now on Friday, and another big topic of discussion was the decision for going for 2 points late in the game by Nick Sirianni. Now, I know this has taken a life of its own on social media. Greg Olsen, the Fox analyst, former tight end of Carolina Panthers, said it's not even debatable that Nick Sirianni definitely should have gone for 2, because now you know exactly what you need to win the game. And while I agree with that, and I'm probably in the minority here, you have to take the game in context too. You can't just look at a spreadsheet. You can't just look at the numbers and say, oh, well, it's telling me I have to do this here because that's what the data says. They went for it with 3 minutes and 10 seconds left. Not a whole lot of time. Yes, they had 3 timeouts. Yes, they had the 2-minute warning. So in theory, they did have time to potentially get the ball back twice. That's what they would have needed to do because they missed the 2-point conversion. So instead of being down by 1 score, a touchdown and 2 points or whatever it may be, you're down 9 points with a little over 3 minutes left in regulation. And the way your defense was playing, they couldn't stop the Bears at all, giving up the most rushing yards in a game in 10 years. So why would you think that you could get not 1, but 2 possessions in that short time frame. I thought they should have kicked the extra point, make it a one-score game. You get the fans back involved. Now you put pressure on Caleb Williams and this offense to sustain one more drive. And they very well could have. The way they played on Friday, very easily they could have just put the game away anyway. But if they didn't, now you have the momentum. Now you've got all the energy. And now you have one final chance on your home field with what's supposed to be one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL. Give them one more chance to execute, which is the key word this season for this team, to go down and score a touchdown and get the 2-point conversion to win the game. I just don't understand the 2-point conversion when they went for it. To me, thought it took them out of the game, and they essentially lost the game because you're down by 9 points with a little over 3 minutes left to go. And the way that game was playing out, it would have taken a miracle to get 2 possessions, let alone 1. You were needing 2. And again, I understand where Sirianni was coming from. I understand where Greg Olson's coming from, and all the data and the analytics say, oh, well, you go for that because now you know you need to get the ball twice, and now you can manage the clock the way you need to. But you could have still done that, I think, by just kicking the extra point. Now, again, the extra point wasn't a give me because we saw Jake Elliott miss one earlier, and that's kind of the reason why they were in the predicament that they were in to go for 2. So some food for thought. Would love to know your thoughts on it. Drop a comment. Feel free. I probably am in the minority there, but I just thought when they didn't get it, you're looking at the scoreboard and the time, you're down by 9. The math wasn't mathing, at least for me, where you can look at this team and say, okay, I need 2 stops. And they ended up losing anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I know that was a big topic of discussion and wanted to give my 2 cents on it, and curious to see what you guys think as well. So that will just about do it here. We've got one more topic to talk about, and it's the NFC. I mean, this season in the NFL might be the most wide open an NFL season has ever been. I mean, it's absolutely crazy what's happening. The Rams shockingly lost to Carolina. Los Angeles was a 10-point favorite against the Panthers. They end up losing on the road, and now the Eagles are only 1 game behind the Rams and the Bears for the number 1 seed. And then I was doing some research. If the Chicago Bears end up losing this upcoming week, they could go from the 1 seed to the 7 seed. I mean, it is crazy how tight this NFC conference is as we take a quick look at the standings here. Obviously, Chicago leading the way in the NFC at 9-3, holding the tiebreaker over the Eagles. The Rams also 9-3, but Philadelphia obviously has the tiebreaker over the Rams for their win. Then you've got Tampa Bay at 7-5, Seattle's 9-3, Green Bay's 8-3, San Francisco's 9-4. So, despite the sky feeling like it's falling right now on the Philadelphia Eagles, if there's a silver lining right now, is that they are still within reach of getting home field advantage. If they could just take care of business over the next 5 weeks, you've seen these teams trip up. They've got a 1.5 game cushion against Dallas. It's obviously not as big of a cushion as it was just a few weeks ago. But you can theoretically see a path where the Eagles are still right in the middle of the fight for the number 1 seed. And that's paramount, because if the Eagles can get back home come January, it is going to be tough for any team to come in and play. And I know you might say, oh, Cory, the offense is terrible. It doesn't matter. Look what happened. Denver came in. Chicago came in. They're not as fearsome at home. And while, yes, that's true, there's still a month of football for this team to get it right. Now, will they get it right? there's a good possibility they don't, and this is, in fact, the 2025 Eagles, a team with a broken offense, with a coaching staff that just can't figure out how to put the pieces together, and the talented playmakers have just kind of given up on what they've been taught this year, and they don't believe in it wholeheartedly. That very well could be the case. That very well could come out in the woodworks in the offseason. We have no idea. But right now, you look at the NFC holistically, and the Eagles aren't in an awful position that one would think in terms of standings. Again, the offense, atrocious. They got to figure it out. The defense, they got to make adjustments. They have been leaking like a sieve. They've been struggling with tackling. They've given up 450 plus yards almost in both games. They've given up on average 450 over the last two games, but not both games total, obviously. But they are struggling right now. They need to right the ship, and the defense can get back to the way they were playing against Green Bay and Detroit and give this team some confidence. Maybe, just maybe, the Eagles offense can do just a little bit more to get over the hump. Again, if this defense can play the way it showed, where they could be a championship caliber defense, the Eagles only need to average about 24 to 27 points. But that seems to be a lot right now when they're only averaging 15.5 over the last month. So we'll see how things break out. We've got another episode coming your way tomorrow. We should have our first injury report as well coming through later this week. We'll keep an eye out on that, and we will also keep an eye out on any possible changes with the play calling. But right now, Kevin Patullo will remain the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, and we will see what they look like on Monday Night Football for the entire nation to see. So a lot of eyeballs will be on the Eagles, and more than there are right now, and the microscope is getting even more and more intense for Nick Sirianni and his club. Well, that'll just about do it for this episode of Eagles Latest. As always, please subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on how you feel about this team moving into this Week 14 battle against the Chargers, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one.